as audio professionals, right, our ears are the most sensitive and essential instrument, right? It's not the console, it's not all the cool gear, it's not the guitars, bro. It is your ears at the end of the day. But a lot of us really don't understand how they work and how to prevent them from burning out. So I'm going to talk about like the anatomy and physiology of our ears and what causes ear fatigue and mixing and how to protect like your most valuable asset, dude. Like I spent a lot of time in the medical field. I took a bunch of anatomy and physiology classes, so I have a really good understanding of how this stuff works. And I did a video like this years ago, and I kind of wanted to redo it and update it because I think this is important, right? Let's talk about the anatomy and physiology of how our ears work and how they process sound. I feel like a lot of you guys don't really know this, so it might be interesting. So the human auditory system is a finely like tuned biological processor, so to speak, right? It's our ADDA converters essentially with the world. So let's break it down. So we have our outer ear, our middle ear, and our inner ear, okay? So the outer ear is we have something called the pinna, which captures and funnels sound waves into the external auditory canal. So that's all this stuff right here. Your ears are shaped like a diffuser, right? And then sound waves, which is literally just air moving in a particular way based off of what's causing the vibrations in the air, they get trapped in our outer ear. And then the sound waves reach your tympanic membrane, or better known as the eardrum, and it literally looks like a bass drum, hence tympanic or timpani, and then it causes it to vibrate. And then your middle ear, these vibrations are amplified by three ossicles, which are little tiny bones that are called the malleus or the hammer, the incus or the anvil, and the stapes or the stirrup, right? So a bunch of different terms here, right? The stapes connects to this little oval window that transfers vibrations to the inner ear called the cochlea. And it pretty much looks like a little snail shell that's just filled with fluid. So these mechanical vibrations move through what's called endolymph fluid, and it creates a wave along the basilar membrane. All right, so we're nerding out here. And then these specific areas of this membrane resonate with specific frequencies, right? And this is called tonotopic organization, right? So check it out. The inner ear, they have they're little hairs and they're called stereocilia, hence where we get the term stereo from. And they're shaped like a descending hair comb. So each hair reacts with certain frequencies. And they're very delicate, and they just line the entire cochlea. So when the basilar membrane vibrates, the stereocilia bend and they convert that mechanical energy into electromechanical signals via something called mechanotransduction, right? We don't need to go that deep. But these signals are transmitted through the auditory nerve or the eighth cranial nerve, aka trigeminal, hence where I get my name from, nerve 8. And it goes to the auditory cortex of the brain, which is right here on the side, where the sound is consciously perceived and interpreted. So what starts physiological becomes like perception and almost psychological. So in mixing, the whole process is happening like in real time, over and over at high complexity and often high volume. But like any biological system, like our ears have their limits. So what is ear fatigue? It's essentially these stereocilia, these little hairs, they progressively start to bend and become flatter or fade, right? So ear fatigue, or is this like temporary auditory threshold shift, right, is a real physiological condition and is caused by overstimulation of the stereocilia, which can become desensitized or temporarily impaired, depletion of neurotransmitters in the auditory nerve and the synapses, overuse of the tensor tympani and the stapedius muscles. There's little muscles within the ear which protect the inner ear from super loud sounds, leading to like muscle fatigue itself. And then accumulated like oxidative stress in cochlea tissues, especially after like long exposure to high sound pressures, which man, in Atlanta studios is like super common. Like people will just turn up those Augsburgers for way too long, and it's mainly just to please the clients. But I do know guys that like to mix super loud, and I don't know why, dude. So like you'll notice, man, you'll have this dull or muted hearing, you'll have reduced sensitivity to high frequencies, poor transient interpretation, like misjudged tonal balances. Like you'll pretty much be making decisions that you don't really need to make. So like in short, your mix will sound off, but the problem isn't your monitors or your mix, it's just your brain and ears have hit their limit. There's a couple risk factors, obviously, like, you know, things that just make it worse, really. And there's a bunch of studio cliches: coffee, late nights, dark room, red lights, whiskey glasses, whatever other substances we got. But things that just make it worse is just prolonged exposure, usually over 85 decibels of sound pressure. Even just a few hours can cause this temporal or temporary threshold shift, right? Just ear fatigue. Alcohol, cannabis, dude, or any other stimulant. I mean, I'm big on caffeine, so like I get it too, right? But these interfere with central auditory processing, cerebral blood flow, and just the brain's like neurochemical balance. Sleep deprivation is a big one. We're all in the studio super late, and this just reduces your brain's ability to recover and process sound accurately. But I get it, man. Like that's just when the creativeness comes out, is late night. So that is what it is. Here's another big one: continuous headphone use, especially with closed back headphones, because they are designed to keep the pressure closed in. So like I have two different headphones right here, right? Like these are closed back, and then I have open back headphones. If I'm mixing, I'm usually going to use open back headphones because I can listen to them longer, and they usually have a flatter frequency response. And just the closed back stuff just builds up pressure, and it isolates your ears from like natural spatial use and just increases like the strain, which leads me to like headphone versus speakers. And from like a fatigue perspective, headphones and near field monitors have like similar effects. So headphones and monitors serve completely different purposes, but when it comes to fatigue, there's a couple different things to break down. So headphones deliver sound directly into the ear canal. There's no air resistance or room interaction. They often like expose your ears to higher sound pressure levels than you realize due to just like the proximity and isolation. And they lack binaural spatial like cues, you know, which is why we can't really mix Atmos in headphones, and like panning is always kind of weird when you go back to monitors. It just causes your brain to work harder to resolve imaging and like spatial placement. It can cause condition known as listener fatigue syndrome, especially during long editing and like very detailed work session. And then with monitors, they allow more natural sound dispersion and head movement. They give your ears more subtle dynamic relief. The interaction with the room gives your brain contextual acoustic information that just reduces like the cognitive strain. You don't have to like pay attention as hard. I think monitors are better. They just encourage a couple different things, even from like your posture perspective, and they just allow for, I don't know, easier breaks, man. You can get up, you can walk around and whatever. Okay, so what are some things you can practice to like reduce ear fatigue? Some people will do this, some people won't. It is what it is. But usually mixing with like healthy habits, which I think nowadays more people are prone to just being healthier and taking care of themselves, but like keep water around, you know, stay hydrated, get up, stretch, set a timer, open a window, just relax, you know what I mean? Mix at lower levels is a bigger one. So most mastering engineers will tell you that when they master, they master between like 70 to 75 decibels of SPL, right? Sound pressure levels. And though, like I have one on my phone where it's like a little sound pressure meter, and I can just register what my speakers are outputting. And that usually sounds about conversation level, kind of how I'm talking now. The other thing is the 60-60 rule, which is like no more than 60 minutes of listening at 60% of the max volume without a break. Most of us can't really stay focused for more than 40 minutes. That's just like a human limit of what a bunch of studies have found. I went through a bunch of pilot courses on like cognitive enhancement, and a lot of you know, scholars mention that 40 minutes is a good cutoff. So I always set a timer on my phone around 45 minutes, and then I'll take like a 10 to 15 minute break and come back and do my thing again. So just like little micro breaks like that help a lot. Something else you can do is like switch your listening mode, right? Like switch between monitors and headphones. Use headphones sparingly and at low volumes. I know it's tempting to turn it up and just vibe out. I got it. Even change rooms if you need to. Just different rooms have different shapes, different acoustics, and it just kind of gives you a different perspective sometimes. Even like changing up the monitors. Something else. Here's something that I just kind of thought of. We like to use reference tracks when mixing. My advice would be to use the reference track early. Listen to it early because your ears are most accurate during that first hour of the session. So that's when you would kind of want to hear what you're trying to reference initially. And then lastly, dude, just get a good night's sleep, like neural repair and memory consolidation, like to include auditory memory, happens during deep sleep. Everybody knows that. I don't know, that is what it is, dude. All right, look, your ears are complex and they are a beautifully sensitive system. It's not just a pair of microphones, dude. Like, respect the limit. You wouldn't leave a 251, like a tube mic on all freaking day. You'd burn out the tube and you don't want to blow a, $12,000 to $15,000 mic, right? So, respect the limit, understand the biology, and like treat them like they're prized gear. Like your ears are like your biggest asset, so make better habits. It makes better mixes and you'll have a longer career. How many guys do you know who have been in music for 30 plus years and they get that ringing in their ear, right? That's tinnitus, dude. That's literally permanently damaged stereocilia. That is what that ringing is. It's trying to pick up stuff and it's sending mixed signals to the brain and it's causing a ring. So yeah, cool. I hope you guys like that. That's pretty intensive. That's about as good of a lesson as you're gonna get without going to like school on ear fatigue. Yeah, man, like, subscribe, all the stuff, dude.